later, I'm like, hey, man, remember that you said this? And he's like, I don't do that anymore. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. So apparently maybe somebody cracked down on him or whatever it was. But it's almost 6 o'clock.
All right, we're ready to begin.
All right. Well, it is 6 o'clock, Thursday, May 25th. And before we, just a couple items before we approve this agenda, Mayor Ryder and Councilmember Vasquez were unable to attend this meeting. But we do have enough council members for a quorum. There was also one public comment that will be read into the record. And Councilmember Stedman is attending virtually. And with that, can I get a motion?
Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously. And our first item on our agenda is the Greg Cuyo Park Urban Growth Boundary Amendment, and presenting will be Ryan Andrews, Community and Economic Development Planning Manager.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Scott. So good evening. Just wanted to quickly update the council on a recent application that the city made regarding adding a portion of Cuyo Park to the urban growth area. So as you may be aware, approximately about half of the Greg Cuyo Park is not located within the Lacey city limits. We have about 400 acres of that park total, and about 210 are located actually in rural Thurston County. And so in order for the city to actually legally annex the property, we can't annex property that's not first in the urban growth area. So we have made application to the Urban Growth Management Subcommittee of TRPC to start that process. So what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about what that process looks like, and then talk about the map and what the properties that are entailed in adding those to the urban growth area, and then turn it over to you to ask any questions. So as I mentioned, this first goes to the Urban Growth Management Subcommittee of Thurston Regional Planning Council. This is a committee that's made up of various elected officials and other representatives that are a subcommittee to TRPC. They look at through the countywide planning policies. They're tasked at looking at urban growth area amendments, making recommendations ultimately to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners. So we have a meeting coming up June 5th. I believe Councilmember Miller is the representative from Lacey on that committee. And that committee will be briefed, and then hopefully at that point make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. I believe the Board of County Commissioners will be holding their own public hearing on the amendment, and then we'll be acting on it. So a little bit about the map. So as you can see, it's a little hard to see on the screen there, but the purple area to the south, that's the existing Lacey urban growth area. The area in darker green is the current Cuyo Park boundary that's located in the city limits. So you can see Carpenter Road bisects and runs north-south. So on the north end, you have Hawks Prairie Road, and on the south end, you have Britton Parkway. So it's kind of right in the middle of the area between Britton Parkway and Hawks Prairie Road. Like I mentioned, there's about 210 acres. There are 7 additional parcels that would also make up the potential amendment. So not only do we have the city's property there, but we also have 7 privately owned pieces of property. You can see the ones and they're shown on the map there as with the arrows that say additional parcels. The one with the arrow pointing down towards the south, those properties are actually bifurcated by the urban growth area. So they're actually split. The southern portion are in the urban growth area. The northern portion of those properties are outside. Yep, that area there. We will get that resolved, hopefully through this process. Otherwise, we would be leaving essentially a donut hole there of a small portion of unincorporated rural Thurston County. And then the ones that with the arrow pointing to the right or to the east, those are additional pieces of property that would be surrounded on all sides by urban growth area. And so we would take a look at adding those to the urban growth area as well, rather than including them, in somewhat of a donut hole there. Yeah. Yes, I think they all have single family residences on all of them. Correct. All 7, I believe, have single family residences on them.
So there's
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, there's 4 on the northeast area there, and there's 3 on the southern portion. So we feel like it's a logical extension of the city limits. As someone once said, it's your who you call for emergency services shouldn't necessarily depend on what hole of the disc golf course you're on. So it helps resolve some of those issues as far as jurisdictional boundaries and calls for service. It will also improve permitting, because we'd be able to permit this all within the city limits. We've done that analysis, and we'll be showing the Urban Growth Management Subcommittee that work. It's important to note, that this is the first step in the process. This does not annex the property, but it's the first step in doing that. As far as annexation goes, the city is able to annex its own property through resolution. So we could do that here. The problem is that we would essentially be leaving those donut holes that we're adding as unincorporated islands. So the council, when the time comes, we'll ask the council kind of what method that they would like to use. We could annex it by resolution, or if we wanted to eliminate those donut holes and annex all those 7 parcels as well as the city's property, we could do that through a standard 60% petition method, because the city owns the majority of the property in the area and will be over 60% of the assessed value of the area. So as I mentioned, this is going to be going in front of that Urban Growth Management Subcommittee June 5th, and we'll keep you updated as we move through that process. Hopefully it goes relatively smooth. Be happy to answer any other questions you might have. It seems very straightforward. You just never know, because sometimes our last experience with expanding the urban growth area was for the North Thurston Public Schools property that is on the west side of Marvin Road, north of 41st. A property they purchased a number of years back and had added to the urban growth area, and that ran into some issues, some people that weren't supportive of adding that area to the urban growth area, even though it was to provide public services to those area, to the area there. It would have connected that to water and sewer. I think there was good outcomes as far as that went, but it wasn't a totally smooth process. I'm hopefully this one will not necessarily have any true kind of urban services. It'll be developed as the park. The properties that we're including there, the 7 additional, don't really have any development potential. The nearest city utilities are like 1.5 miles away. So we wouldn't be, annexing this and then later converting it to, urban high density residential type land. So I'm hopeful that it'll go smoothly.
Councilmember Stedman.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we do a resolution and then do this process just for the donut holes, for lack of a better term?
Could you repeat the question? I'm not exactly sure.
Could we do it by resolution, or is it? Yeah, I think I'm just misunderstanding. So if we do it by resolution, there's still going to be little holes missing, right? So could we do the resolution and then do this process after the resolution, or does that not?
When you're talking about so we're talking about the annexation. we could annex the properties that are shown in the inside the red boundary there. That's the park by under resolution, but it would leave essentially 2 donut holes remaining. And at that point, we don't have like power of attorney agreements or any trigger to require those folks to
And we'd have
annex.
to process anyways, right?
Sorry, you were kind of breaking up. I didn't quite understand.
So then we'd have to go through the process anyways.
Correct. So recommendation is that unless otherwise, we probably want to go through the standard process, the 60% petition method, so that we're not leaving donut holes if we were to use that resolution method.
So those 7 parcels, they don't have any, they're undeveloped.
No,
They are developed. Are those the same parcels that we entered into the agreement with for the community? That's a different set of parcels on the same road, up the road? We have no agreements with those 7 parcels?
About the community center.
Yeah. Okay, so that's,
yeah, this is at the very end of Pleasant Glade Road. Pleasant Glade Road, if you've ever been out to Pleasant Glade Park, is on your right-hand side, and Pleasant Glade Road, it kind of eventually kind of peters out at where that northeastern donut hole is. So that's kind of where people turn around when Pleasant Glade Road ends, if you've ever been out that far.
okay.
On the far east side of the park.
Make sure you're talking to the mics or turn your mics on.
I'll use my pointer.
Yeah, use your. Okay, that's where we entered into the, okay, all right, just wanted to check and make sure that we,
Pointer was a little short.
is good. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything on this agenda item? It looks pretty straightforward. And staff recommendation is to go through the county first, get the UGA situation sorted out, and then resolve all of this into the city.
Correct. Yep.
And the council is comfortable with that course of action?
No,
No, it's already,
no action tonight.
already in.
this is information only. This is something that we took the opportunity and already started the process.
Okay, well, if there is nothing further on this agenda item, thank you, Ryan. Next on our agenda is the 2022 to 2024 work plan report, and that will be presented by Shannon Kelly Fong, our Assistant City Manager.
Well, good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. I am here tonight to report on the work plan, but I also want to recognize that all of my colleagues are sitting around the table as well, because they will also be reporting out on the items identified in the work plan as theirs. Part of the reason we wanted to be here tonight was to provide a highlight of all of the exceptional work that's being performed and has been performed since the adoption of the plan over the last year and a half. About a little over 6, 7, 8, 9 months, somewhere around there. But the idea is that we'd like to report out to the council about every 6 months on the work plan, just to keep it in front of the council, staff, and the community moving forward. So really quickly, I just wanted to provide a general overview of how we got here. I know you all were part of how we got here, but for anybody who might be watching or just need a refresher. So for background, this all started about a year ago. I think that's where I got that year ago in my mind. And it really started with interviews one-on-one with the council, and that worked into a survey. And through that survey, council started the process of identifying what its priorities were for 2022, 2023, and 2024. This ultimately resulted in a city council retreat last April in 2022, where council members discussed short-term priorities for the city and also engaged in a second prioritization exercise based off of the conversation that occurred during that meeting, as well as other information from the first prioritization exercise. From that point, city staff went back and sharpened some pencils, took a look at what was going on, capacity, staffing, and tried as best as possible to assess priorities and provide recommendations to the city council. And as part of that process, trying to identify particular benchmarks that could be helpful for gauging progress over the next 2 years as we worked through this plan. This ultimately resulted in coming back to a work session for further discussion on a draft work plan for 2022 to 2024. And the council at that point deliberated and provided some additional feedback. And through that feedback, we brought a final work plan to the council for adoption on September 15th of 2022. The work plan itself identified top priority work plan items, and there are a number of them. And briefly, they were broken into theme areas. These theme areas align with the city's vision areas. So we had coordinated and collaborative planning, and we had to craft a framework to strategically advance annexations and urban growth area permitting. Second one, to update the comprehensive plan and review development regulations. Moving on to the next vision area, which is a vibrant place to live, work, and play, was complete Greg Cuyo Park and Greenways Phase 1A, finalize the city's homeless response plan and enhance social services, and continue initiatives to advance indoor recreation opportunities. The next vision area was vibrant and diverse economy, and within it, it had focus on RAC Phase 3 and other sports facility developments, enhance economic, workforce, and incubator projects and programs. The next vision area was a safe and secure community, and that was to continue the development of a new Lacey Police Department. And then the next vision area was quality transportation and infrastructure, which included continue focus on Interstate 5 and Nisqually Bridge corridor solution, and to enhance multimodal transportation and infrastructure and create a welcoming physical environment for all community members. The final vision areas, there were 3 more. We have environmental stewardship, and the priority identified was to continue implementation of climate mitigation efforts. An engaged community, for that vision area, it was to enhance communication and engagement efforts. And for excellent in programs in services, it was to attract and retain quality and qualified staff to meet service needs. So for the work plan, and I have a couple of copies here tonight if anybody would like them. They're also readily available on the city's website. Just as a reminder that within the work plan itself, it identified the vision area, it identified what the priority was, and then provided some information on why we were looking at it and what the general context of the situation was. And then also provided some more information on what the anticipated project cost would be, funding source, city's role, city level of control, lead departments, secondary departments, point of contacts, and how many hours and staff time that was anticipated to perform that particular item. It also, like I mentioned earlier tonight, included anticipated benchmarks. And that's really what we are kind of here to chat about and review, is just take a look at some of the action items that we have done in 2022 and here through the first 5 months of 2023. And we did indicate those benchmarks, yearly for 2022, 2023, and then in a kind of lump 2024 and beyond. Something that staff has created as part of a way to communicate what we are doing and to keep this up to date, at least again in a 6-month update interval, was to create an online dashboard that allows members of the community, as well as staff and council members, to take a look at the progress as we go through the work plan. And so I do want to just kind of briefly highlight that and kind of walk through the basics of what that dashboard does. So first, for starters, and if anybody does like a copy, we can certainly pass the work plan down here. For starters, you can find where the work plan exists on the city's website under the city council. If you go to government and city council, you can see the mission, vision, and priorities, and clicking that will take you to the mission, vision, and priorities page. And this provides a general overview of the city's mission statement, its vision, its themes, and motto. And it also provides you information on the work plan and the priorities. So if you select the work plan and priorities, it'll take you to the work plan document where you can take a look at all of the priorities identified and their benchmarks. Another way that the public, as well as city staff and council members can go through this information is through this dashboard that was created. This allows people to kind of quickly toggle through and see updates on where certain priorities are. So just as an example, if we were to select a vibrant place to live, work, and play, it would open up a dashboard that would show all of those priority projects within that goal area, all of the years and all of the very specific projects. You could at that point filter it so you could see more information on what you are interested in. So for example, if one person was to select complete Greg Cuyo Park and Greenways Phase 1A, they'd be provided with all of the benchmarks that were put into the work plan and where their progress is, so where we are and what we've done, and then a brief update just to provide kind of a snapshot of the work being performed within that priority area. So members of the public can search through this and certainly take a look at what's going on. One thing I did want to point out, and if we take a look at all priorities and we go to all, filter that to 2022. What I wanted to show was we've got projects by progress, and I just wanted to point out that the city did perform and complete a lot of the benchmarks that were identified in 2022 or are actively working to finalize a lot of those projects. And so we're going to get into an overview of that by going through some of these vision areas. And the intent really is to hear from all of the department directors, to provide an update on what's going on, and it really to be more of a dialogue. So certainly, please, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Also recognize that some of the items that we are about to go over tonight have been gone through in much greater detail in recent council meetings. And so, with that, we might not provide the same degree of overview as was provided previously, but we do want to highlight some fantastic things that are going on within our departments and within our organization.
One quick question. Would this include projects that we or have been doing or working with or looking at with other jurisdictions that just so happen to be located in Lacey? Like when we did the joint session with North Thurston Public Schools, that project is technically in Lacey, but I didn't know if it would be included. It's not part of our work plan. So I guess if that answers my question, then that's a good enough answer.
So it is actually part of our work plan. And I know Jen Burbidge is going to talk about that in a little bit more detail once we get to that priority area. But if it was identified as a priority or a benchmark within the 2022-2024 work plan, it will show on this dashboard and show where our progress currently is as of today.
Okay. Thank
Excuse
you.
me. I do want to point out, though, really quickly before that we go through all of this, is just to also take in mind that there have been some things that have changed since we adopted this plan. And first of all, just to point out that the plan was adopted in late 2022. So we're talking, September 2022, which really provided about 2 months of time to work on that through 2022. There's also been some significant organizational changes since that time. And so certainly keeping that in mind. And then there's, I hadn't either, no. There's also some additional outside forces and pressures that are beyond the city's control. So just as an example, supply chain disruptions continue to be something that the city feels the impact of. Staffing shortages and changes are certainly also, something that not only the city, but most organizations are continuing to experience at this time. And then I always like to throw in the constant that the only constant in life is that it's constantly changing. So there are things that are unanticipated work items that we have certainly picked up throughout the last 6-7 months that are not going to necessarily be reflected here, but certainly that staff has done a great job executing on. So with that, I would actually like to dive us right into our priority areas. And I'm going to start off with a vibrant place to live, work, and play. And I will kick it over to our Parks Director, Jen Burbidge, for our update on the Greg Cuyo Park and Greenways.
Great. And thanks for driving up there, Shannon. And also, since I'm first, I will take the liberty of thanking Shannon for this tool. And I just think it's a great way for us to see the metrics and for the public too. So thank you. And before I dive into this, I just want to take just a moment to share, in addition to these priority work items, that we are, obviously working on some other stuff too. So I want to take a quick moment and address those, and then I'll get to the dashboard. But just have to give a shout out to the Lacey Park staff for all the great things this spring and summer. Lacey Spring Fun Fair was just hopping last weekend. We had an estimated 20,000 people over the 2-day event. Appreciate all those that helped out and showed up. And our numbers just in general are tracking higher than pre-COVID numbers. So people are very anxious to do things and we're very excited about that. The Lacey and Tune lineup is complete and the marketing is out for that. There's 6 weeks of children's entertainment, concerts, Friday nights with concerts, movies and food, plus our Thursday play in the parks for families, fun, free entertainment. And then of course our July 3rd fireworks event is full with vendors. We have a growing wait list actually of vendors who want to be involved. So we're actually having to turn people away. Bands are lined up, plus aerial acrobats. So we're really excited about that. And that's just special events. So also working on, summer camps. The regional athletic complex is packed. Park rentals are up, facility rentals, things are very busy. So we're very excited about that. The other thing I'll quickly highlight is that we're on the final stretch for the 2023 comprehensive plan update for Parks, Culture and Recreation. So I look forward to sharing that work out with you very soon at one of your work sessions. And we've been spending quality time on it, of course, with the public, but also with the Parks Board, Historical Commission, Commission on Equity, and the Youth Council. So with that, I'll get into the priority items. So Great Cuyo Park and Greenways, you can see in 2022 that all the 4 things that were completed with the exception of the SEPA, that's nearing completion. And then this year in 2023, we're expected to begin our permitting in here coming up next month, potentially happen in July. We are working towards 100% design that's expected in November. We're actually, sorry, we need the 90% first, and then we'll get to 100% by November. That's the anticipated date. Formal bidding and contract award anticipated in the beginning of 2024. So that's where we're at with this one. And as far as, well, sorry, I'll go back. Focusing on the 2022 and 23. So 2023 identifies sustainable funding source for future phases. So that's going to be included in the conference plan for Parks, Culture, Recreation that I just mentioned. And then the statistically valid survey would be tied to that. So that's why that's not started. If that was a direction. Questions on Great Cuyo? No, we're each not supposed to spend too much time, so I could talk about parks all day. Okay. Advancing indoor recreation opportunities. And so Deputy Mayor, this is where the Young Child and Family Center appears in here because it's an indoor recreation opportunity. So as Shannon mentioned, there's a lot of things that are not fully under the city's control. So working with partners and making progress and figuring out funding buckets would be a great theme for this category. But the indoor sports facility, we in 2022 met with potential partners, got a pretty good list of stakeholders that are interested, not a lot of stakeholders with funding. So you can see in 2023, there hasn't been a finalized agreement for that, just because, again, still meeting with potential partners. But want to make sure council knows the discussion is still going. So, Museum and Cultural Center, I gave a pretty in-depth report at the joint Historical Commission council meeting. So, so I won't spend too much time on that one. And then in regards to private recreation, this is an ongoing thing. So you'll see it's marked complete in 22, but you'll notice that it's actually on. It must be on the next page for 2023, continuing, the economic development efforts, including business marketing, retention, expansion. So really, if, we're big on partnerships, as you're well aware, we're always looking for partners from recreation classes like Skyhawk Sports, Bricks for Kids. Those are like private companies that we contract with. To renting out our spaces for tournaments and races, to new opportunities such as like potentially 23 Kitchens is the new pickleball facility. Could we approach them and talk about a joint, tournament or endeavor? There's of course like CERT climbing gym. These are just examples of what could be. And then could we partner for bicycle rentals next to the trails or kayak rentals at any of our locations? So those are the types of things. And I'm not sure if community and economic development has anything to add to that. But that's, pretty much ongoing. And then if you want to flip back to the previous page again, real quick. Oh, sorry.
I misheard you. What were you?
Oh, I was just making sure I hit all of the items. So we got for the indoor rec. I'm kind of jumping around. Indoor sports museum. Yeah, I think I hit all of them.
Great. So with that, we're going to move to vibrant and diverse economy, but not move presenters. We still have Jen and possibly Rick also joining in here to talk a little bit about the focus on the RAC Phase 3 and other sport facility development.
Great. Okay, so so enhancing advertisement to event providers, that's similar to what I was just saying with, looking for ongoing opportunities. So again, it's marked complete, but it's just an ongoing thing. So that you'll see that one in 2023 as well. With the LTAC, we do try to make sure that if there is a group coming to us and they're struggling to find the field fees but they know that they're going to bring in people, then, we would make sure they know about the LTAC dollars that are available. And so a couple of recent examples is like the Deschutes Rugby Club and the Artesian Soccer Group. So those are those types of ongoing opportunities that we're able to share with groups. And then in regards to the RAC Phase 3, so we are, so in 2022, that is marked complete because we did start off the research on a PFD extension. And so, as you know, there's a potential 15-year extension to the current PFD. And so in 2023, we're still in progress, but we're hoping to finalize that research. So staff has met and we still have questions that we're trying to confirm. And so then
Have to be, if we're gonna be able to renew it, when does it have to happen? Still have a couple of years left?
Oh, do you recall?
It's still a little bit of a question as well, but we have to have outstanding debt on the 2 original projects and ours, I think it's 2027 for us. So
Yeah.
3 years roughly, if you don't count.
To still have outstanding debt at that time.
Yeah, and that's where some of the legal questions are is, does it have to be on the original projects? Does it have to be both projects? So those are still some of the questions, but in general, yes, there has to be outstanding debt.
Yeah, thank you, Troy. So yes, we are, finalizing that research and would hope to know the answers by the end of this year and then be able to, finalize a timeline, which would help us finalize a concept plan for that Phase 3. I think I hit all of them.
Great. Well, thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
And so with that, we are going to move over to the next vision theme area, which is a safe and secure community. And I will turn it over to the chief.
Good evening, council. Thank you for hearing us today. You've heard a lot about the station. I won't go ad nauseum on that. Thank you for your support of that endeavor. As we move along in that project, there are a lot of hands and stakeholders involved in this project, both internal to the organization and external to the organization. So I want to thank city staff that's working so hard on this, but also we want to thank the members of the community. We have an advisory panel that assists us with the design and making sure it's a transparent process and that we are truly engaged in the community. With that being said, we're moving through the various stages of this process. We're beyond the 60% schematic phase, marching up towards submitting our plans for permitting prior to the June 30th deadline that we have to make the standard. That's all moving along well. As soon as that's finalized, we'll have to be able to draft the final purchase agreement for the property, and things are moving on just as they should. So things are good there. Any questions on the building?
How far do we have to be before we realize?
I think once we get to permitting, I think that's going to be the key to it. So that the summer is going to really tell the tale. as far as that. But that'll identify we have to redraw the parcel lines to identify for the land we need to buy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've been very supportive of this process. In fact, we have some messaging coming out in the very near future about the land itself and some interesting facts about the land to make sure that the public is fully informed about our plans to make sure that we are protecting the forest and being good stewards of the land. Okay.
I'm not going to repeat the question, but yes, I do have my mic on now.
Okay. Any other questions on the police department? Okay, police station. All right. A couple of other projects that the council has been very supportive of during this process. Really want to speak to the body-worn camera program. We've been talking about that for the last year or so. We had some issues with supply shortages, logistics, COVID, all those kind of things. But that program is off and running. We went with the Axon body-worn camera program. We assigned a 5-year contract with that organization, and we rolled that out in April. We are currently in the familiarization period. Officers in the field are wearing the cameras, again, working with external stakeholders, so they're not surprised when they see us wearing cameras, such as at traffic collision scenes. So the fire department realizes that we have body-worn camera. And there's a lot of things that go into a program like this. It's not just hanging a camera on an officer and, okay, you're good to go. There's a lot that goes into this. There's a criminal justice system, there's storage. It's how do you get the information to the prosecutors, to the public defenders, to the clerk's office, who stores it, who's the actual owner of that video, for discovery purposes, retention schedules, all those type of things. Those are all issues we've navigated and are moving ahead with. So that process is going very well. Yes.
How is it being received by the officers, the patrol officers? Are they, I mean, I know there was some skepticism in the beginning and stuff before it went out, before we did it. And I know there was but how is it being received?
I gotta say the officers have been very supportive. There was never really a lot of skepticism about the program. It's just how are we going to do it? Which is it's always how's this going to work? Where am I going to put on my uniform? Am I going to be out of balance? All that kind of stuff, right? So, I mean, it's all kind of little details because you're changing, you move, you guys know the book, you move your cheese, right? You move the cheese, same thing, right? You're moving something on a piece of equipment that's very personal as far as documenting what they're doing during the day, where it hangs on their uniform, what is it capturing, when can they turn the camera on, when can they turn it off, those type of things. And so it's just like, tell me the who's, the what's, the where's, the whys, and all that. That's what they wanted to know. And we really worked on a policy and a collaborative process to make sure that all that was delved into. But really speaking to that point, which is really a great segue, thank you, is an email I got from my lead defensive tactics instructor, Sergeant Parker, this past week. And if you'll indulge me, I'll share that with the group. This is from Sergeant Napoleon Parker. I want to let everyone know some of the positive trends we are seeing in regards to our use of force incidents. Since we have implemented the patrol tactics program, defensive tactics philosophy changes, we have noticed an increased number of incidents in which officers are taking their time, attempting to control the pace before and during use of force encounters. With the implementation of the body camera program, we as instructors are able to review the incidents and observe the tactics and techniques being employed out in the field. During a recent use of force incident, the officers were able to take the suspect to the ground and maintain control of him until other officers arrived to assist and until the subject was ready to be handcuffed. As many of you know, we are very large proponents of the Gracie Survival 100-second rule, which promotes a certain level of control versus restraint. It appears that our officers are trending in the right direction towards making this philosophy the Lacey standard. We have observed a number of incidents in which officers are controlling suspects for a period of time rather than fighting them into handcuffs, which was the old way of doing things back in the early days of law enforcement, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, all that. So it's really about getting control of the suspect, getting them calmed down, then applying the handcuffs or getting them into a control situation. Officers appear, during this most recent incident, as I'm mentioning, the officers appeared to be very calm and collected. They spoke to the subject throughout the encounter and encouraged him to comply with commands. It goes without saying, the use of these tactics increases the likelihood of favorable outcomes while reducing injuries to both officers and violators. Now, we understand the use of force incidents are going to occur, and they are not pretty. However, the tactics and techniques that are employed can greatly reduce the risk of injury and have the ability to prevent higher levels of force being utilized or being required. Lately, I've observed numerous examples of officers employing the techniques and philosophies being taught. I've observed officers step up on scenes to quarterback the use of force incident as team tactics are employed. This has greatly enhanced the ability to ensure that de-escalation tactics are used throughout the encounter and has aided in making sure that officers are working in unison to get resistive subjects under control and into custody. So what all that means is that you have an officer who stands off from the main incident and is making sure the officers aren't being counterproductive when they're trying to take control of a suspect. Sometimes too many chefs spoil the stew, shall we say, right? So it's good to have that person quarterbacking, say, okay, you step in, you step out, you take the left arm, you take the right arm. Okay, now it's time to bring them together, apply the handcuffs. And you're talking to the subject the entire time. Hey, partner, we don't want to hurt you. This is part of the process. We need to get you in handcuffs so we can get to the next phase of this encounter. And really get talking them into handcuffs, which has really been the Lacey way of doing things all along, right? You've heard me over the last several years. I come to council, I report on the number of uses of force at the end of the year, usually around 40-ish or so. And that's one small piece of the tale. Now with body worn camera, we're capturing all the de-escalation. It's all the not needing need uses of force or using less force than would have been required had we not employed these techniques. So I just want to show the council how the tools you've authorized are being implemented in the police department. So thank you. Any questions?
There's one question that I have in my head is when you video somebody like like you see at a store and it says, hey, you're being filmed, or everywhere you go, you're seeing, if you're being filmed, they want to make sure that you know it. And I imagine that there's some legal precedent that makes them have to do that. Are we going to be bound by a similar legal precedent that where we need to notify people that they're being filmed because it's a body worn camera? Or
You can only tell everybody that. And when it tends to help people be on their best behavior at times. Go along with the program, be a little more polite, a few less expletives. It's always nice. So yeah, we tend to tell people right away, hey, just so you know, you're being filmed. You're being videoed. I'm taking out a recording of this encounter. There are certain situations we need to turn it off when dealing with certain victims, or in certain locations we have to turn it off per statute. But beyond that, we usually tell people all the time if we have the opportunity to let them know they're being videoed.
Gotcha.
I actually ran into one of the officers at a store who was there on a call. I didn't know that, but I just went over to say hello and he said, just letting you know you're on camera. So.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Great. So we'll now move on to our quality transportation and infrastructure, and I will turn it over to our Public Works Director, Scott Egger.
All right, thanks, Shannon. So I'm going to talk about two things in terms of infrastructure. One is Interstate 5, and then the other is our general infrastructure. So in 2022, a planning and environmental linkage study was done for I-5 from Tumwater to Mounts Road. Mounts Road is near the first railroad bridges after you cross north over the Nisqually bridges. So that was more general in nature. But it was determined that a more focused planning environmental linkages study, or a Pell study, is needed from Marvin Road to Mounts Road to specifically address the Nisqually crossing. So over the last 5 months, there have been 5 technical advisory group meetings. So Martin Hoppy, I recall you myself have represented Lacey at those meetings. And the Pell draft is just about complete. It'll go out for public review and response shortly. But the results of the Pell study will help inform NEPA evaluation, which will begin later this fall. So the DOT's done an incredible amount of outreach. They'll do much, much more as they get into the NEPA study. But part of the goal is to address community input. So basically, in a nutshell, what the various communities have been involved with this study have asked for that element, the Nisqually crossings, is one, address the environmental effects of the project. to be compatible with high capacity transit and rail. So there's gonna be a lot of money spent on that crossing, and they want to make sure that in the future, when the time is right and the demand is right and the funding is there, that it could accommodate light rail. And then also include a separated share use path, so bike path, ped path on the structure. Keep I-5 open during construction, and then preserve the Nisqually interchange at exit 114. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. So part of the PEL study includes an alternatives evaluation. So the elements of the alternatives evaluation include looking at enhanced mobility and connectivity of the proposed improvements, system resiliency, your structure type is good, how long, environmental restoration. Obviously, the Nisqually tribe is, extremely interested in the flats, in the delta, in the environmental preservation and restoration there. Knowing that the structures and the alignment and the improvements lead towards economic vitality, equitable outcomes, and relative cost alternatives. So to get to the simple stuff, there were 4 different bridge lengths discussed, and there were a few different options in terms of widening that were discussed. So 3,000 foot long bridge was looked at, a 6,000 foot long, so 6,000 just slightly over a mile, 12,000 foot long bridge, which would be over 2 miles, not single span by any means, and a 14,000 foot long bridge. The 14,000 foot long bridge was a suspension span, and it was dropped. I mean, for very simple reasons, economics. There's really been, this is all 50,000 foot, look-see at things. But the thought is that 14,000 foot long suspension bridge probably would have been in the $4 billion range. So not the best use of taxpayers' dollars. So in terms of the group that was polled, there really will be 2 options that will move forward to be considered during the NEPA evaluation. And that's the 6,000 foot long, bridge and the 12,000 foot long bridge. And again, this is 50,000 foot, look-see. So we're not talking the type of structures or anything like that. In terms of widening models, essentially, there were a number of different considerations, but basically, should they add lanes for HOV, or should they add lanes for general purpose use? And in terms of the polling, 87% of all the participants in these technical advisory group meetings supported moving forward HOV lanes, widening for HOV lanes, moving that forward to NEPA evaluation, but only 42% supported for general use. And
Where was this poll? Who was involved in this poll?
so there were the technical advisory group meetings involved everybody from every community around here. There's probably 50 people, but these are all people who know something about bridges and structures and freeways. So now there's also environmentalists, biologists, social workers, a lot of different folks.
People that are considered general population weren't asked that question.
They will be in the NEPA process.
Will
So this-
they have a shot at maybe reversing that idea and making the lanes general purpose instead of?
It could result in a hybrid. So this doesn't fix it. This
Okay.
just.
As it is now, we just need lanes,
Well,
period.
It's not going, it's not gonna fix the problem
Yeah.
if all we're doing is adding an HOV lane on either side.
Right.
The traffic woes are still going to exist.
So, I mean, to answer your question, no, this doesn't mean that it's definitely going to be an HOV lane, or
Yeah.
it might not be general purpose lane. It could be one, could be the other, could be a hybrid.
Right now, we're just talking about adding
Oh.
lanes.
Yeah. And I mean, and obviously cost is part of this. And then also you got to remember when you get to Olympia going southbound, that's a choke, So, there's, all these bridge abutments along the way that confine the overall width. So it's more than just about, there's more to consider than just going from, Marvin Road or east of Marvin Road to Mounts Road. And then obviously to add lanes, get the railroad bridges up there that will have to be replaced as well. So there's a lot of consideration. So you might look at this as a starting point. You get a lot of people together that, that deal in this world, and you throw out all the, the options like, a $4 billion suspension bridge that some people might think look really cool and they might want it really bad, but it's yeah. So now it will move forward to a NEPA process. And that will begin this fall. They're going to recommend an environmental assessment, going through an environmental assessment process as opposed to an environmental impact statement process. Because they feel that, they'll be able to mitigate items. And honestly, by the time they're through with this, there'll be considerable environmental improvements down in the Delta area compared to what's there now. So that'll be a big improvement. In terms of, or we have a question?
Yeah, just curious. So that bridge was 4 billion, obviously that's off the table. What are you any idea even what you're looking at to expand by a lane, to add a lane in each direction?
In terms of cost,
even roughly, or is it totally no clue yet?
Yeah, it's so early in the process that,
Okay,
yeah.
no problem. I get it.
It's hard to say. It's going to cost a lot of money. In terms of schedule, there's about $60 million in the next 2 biennium in the DOT's budget, which will take this through NEPA. It'll take it through most of the engineering and right of way, but there is no money budgeted for construction. So, so anyway, like a lot of our projects, transportation projects, it's funding dependent. So obviously it's a very important linkage, and there's considerations in terms of the meandering of the Nisqually River and its potential impact on, on the current bridge abutments. So, and with, being immediately adjacent to JBLM, I would think it would be an extremely high priority. And so, should compete very well for funding. In terms of overall general infrastructure, right now, we currently have 13 utility and transportation projects under construction with a construction cost of $31 million. So I'm not going to go through all those, but 13 projects under construction currently with a construction cost of $31 million. So couple of the big ticket projects there is like one's the Terry Cargill Reservoir. It's about $8.5 million. And the other is a golf club, wastewater replacement. So the road will be replaced as part of that also, but that's $6.5 million. And that's just getting underway. I'm going to quickly go through 8 transportation projects that we have listed here in this matrix that will be constructed, assuming we can get the funding over the next 10 years. And those will add up to about $60 million. So 8 projects, $60 million. So Carpenter and Britton Parkway, construction might begin as late, later this year and roll into 2024. The design's complete, just wrapping up right of way on that. The frontage at the rack along Stilican Road, that could go to construction later this year. It's not obviously a huge project, so it would finish in 2024 if they get underway later this year. The college extension from Martin Way to 15th, and then also includes 6th. That design is at the 90% stage, and it'll be under construction in 2024. The college and 7th roundabout, just getting really close to signing the agreement, coming to agreement with St. Martin's and MJR on that project. And then we will begin design in 2024, and it would go to construction in 2026. The Fourth Avenue extension between College and Golf Club, that will most likely go to construction in 2026 because of everything that's going on, all the resources. We literally don't have anybody to work on that right now. Willamette and Campus Glen roundabout, it'll go to construction in 2027, depending on grant funding. Design will begin this summer. The College and 16th roundabout, that's a biggie when all costs are considered. It's written at a little over $20 million. We have about $4.85 million in grants right now. But that would be going to construction in 2027, depending on grants. And, we've been going after raised grants, and Shannon's been very helpful on that. So we think that we can be competitive there. So I'd say that time frame, fingers crossed, is within reach. With the funding we currently have, design's about 90%, and we look to obligate right-of-way funding in 2024. And then College and 29th, which is, further out, same thing. It'll probably be in the neighborhood of a $20 million project when all is said and done. We have
On the College and 29th, what's the proposed date that we may break ground on that one?
College and 29th more than likely is until after 2030.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
And then,
when I say 10 years, that'll take us to 2033. So,
and then 6th Avenue
or
in College.
or 7th in College.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we look to start design in 2024 and go to construction in 2026. And then, College and 29th, totally dependent on grant funding. So hopefully by 2030.
So in the end, how many roundabouts are we talking about on College Street alone?
Well, that'll take it up to 5. So starting down at 45th Avenue, and then 29th, 22nd, 16th, and 7th Avenue will be 5.
5 total.
Yeah. But we can look for more.
The design for Britton Parkway and Carpenter Road. Are you bringing that transportation? Because I don't think we saw that one.
Yeah,
just yet.
it's the designs. I'm basically complete, Carpenter and Britton Parkway. So basically just wrapping up right of way, hoping to go to construction at the end of this year.
So you'll be bringing that transportation next month potentially, or we'll be able to see the design, like touch it, feel it.
I mean, yeah,
Okay, let me rephrase.
Yeah, we
We'd like to see that design.
Yeah, we can bring it to you.
Thank you.
Sure,
Okay.
you bet.
I can't see count. There he is. Okay.
So Shannon, would you like me to comment on EV fleet conversion right now?
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
should I
So-
hold on that?
No, we'll start with the environmental stewardship theme area, and we'll start with Scott, and then we'll transition to Grant Beck. So Scott, please.
Okay, I think you all know that all agencies were mandated to convert to EVs by 2030. And so it's really not a realistic date. That was something that was, the legislature put out there. Last year, we completed our fleet conversion, EV conversion plan. And actually, thanks to the heavy lifting of Brian Gugamos, our fleet supervisor, and Scott Devlin. But the approach was that when an existing vehicle was depreciated and in need of replacement, at that time, we would replace it with an EV in order to best utilize the funds that our taxpayers give us. There's, wouldn't be in the best use of funds to say replace a vehicle where only 50% of its lifespan has been used with a new EV. So that was our approach, and utilizing that approach and looking at what we thought would be vehicles that EVs would be available, that would take us out to 2040. So in 2021, we attempted to purchase 2 Ford Lightnings just to get a handle on how well they used and see whether we wanted to, make that kind of our truck conversion. Couldn't get those. So they were budgeted. We put in POs, just weren't available due to lack of availability. Then in 2022 for 2023, we requested funding for 13 conversions. And again, all these 13 were vehicles and equipment that had reached the end of its useful life. It was the right time. But so far, we've only been able to secure 2 EVs. One's a Chevy Bolt and the other is a forklift. So, we want to comply. We want to make this transition, but if you can't get the vehicles, you can't get the vehicles.
When you can't get the vehicles, are you then keeping the current vehicle in use longer? Or are you having to replace it with?
If we need to replace a gas vehicle with a gas vehicle, that's what we're doing because we have to have a vehicle. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, so then that obviously pushes the useful life of those out further.
Scott, just real quick. So far, all of our replacement efforts have been towards maintenance vehicles. We haven't talked about police vehicles.
Well, that's another consideration is 1, the vehicles have to be available, and 2, they have to meet the functionality that say the police department needs.
Yeah, so the new police station will have channeling built in for the eventuality of EV chargers. But since we're not sure what infrastructure system will be in place at that time, so it's kind of being left to be finalized later on. But the channels we run, so we can always just put it in instead of having to rip up all the stuff we're just putting in now. The problem is the vehicle has to be pursuit rated, which is a big deal for liability purposes. And right now, there's not a lot in that area. So there's a lot of questions about that. Also, the amount of equipment in the vehicle changes the dynamics of vehicle handling quite a bit as well. And that's a consideration. And also the wear and tear on the vehicle and the brakes and the tires are a big deal on electric vehicles.
Yeah. One of the questions that I had that came in my mind, I know this is off subject and off topic because we're talking about maintenance vehicles, but as we look over at police vehicles, I can't help but wonder is a full charge enough for an 8 to 12 hour shift?
Well, yes, that's the question. Will it last the entire shift? I have a feeling by the time we get to that, we might have, instead of plug-in chargers, we might have, like the electric buses in Southern California, they're actually charged in place. They park over coils and that's how they charge. We might have that by the time it comes to fruition here, frankly.
15, 20 years, who knows what.
Touchless stuff. Right. So, but that's what we're keeping an eye on the environment. We're looking at other jurisdictions that are using electric vehicles and we're looking at the issues they're having so you don't have to relearn all those mistakes. But I can also tell you we're not getting the other type of vehicles either. So this is supply chain issues. So it's not just the electric vehicles that are hard to get.
All right.
So yeah, we have 2, a Bolt and a forklift.
Yeah.
So how does all of that play into both police and maintenance vehicles with the mandate from the state that it has to be done by, would you say, 2030? I mean, obviously that's not happening, right? I mean, sounds good, not happening.
Yeah, I think that at the time that the 2030 date was established, they probably believed with all the best information they had at the time that was realistic. But obviously, if we can't get vehicles, that those dates will be pushed out based on the best available information.
Yeah. Those are pre-pandemic dates.
Well, yeah, I mean, in the police side of things, it sounds like the vehicle that could do the job doesn't even actually exist yet, really.
Well, not realistically, I don't think.
Yeah.
But understand, we're not the only people in this. I mean, WSP has this huge issue as well, and they don't have any electric vehicles to my knowledge, at least none that are in regular service. So, I mean, they will help lead the way on this as well for Washington State. So if WSP cannot meet that criteria, they're going to have to change the date.
Good.
Because they'll be out of compliance just like us.
Gotcha.
I think I exceeded my 10 minutes. I'm sorry.
Barely.
Obviously not for police vehicles yet, but might there be hybrid vehicles that would at least partially meet the state's goals until the EV supply is more reliable?
There are hybrid like pool vehicles and that kind of thing, but we haven't not like hybrid, other that meet our other needs.
Right.
So, but I mean, I can tell you, me personally, I have a need to drive to Spokane. So I want something with a 300-mile range. We've got a Suburban, has that range, but I have a Jetta, just plain old gas Jetta that gets 42 miles a gallon. It's not even hybrid. It's one of the lowest cost sedans on the market. And, you know, hybrids might get 50, maybe a little more. So hybrids can be beneficial, but there are good old fashioned vehicles out there that get close to the same mileage at a lot lower cost, and both in terms of purchase and maintenance. But we're doing the best we can. So yeah, we want.
I understand that. I just
Yeah.
sometimes maybe thinking outside one
Yeah,
direction there. And, you know, too, it's not just about mileage, it's about carbon output that we,
right.
that's why I brought up the hybrid.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry, please go ahead.
I just wanted to throw in that, you know, there's a lot of vehicles that can go, you know, say if they're 8 or 6 cylinder, they can go down to 4 cylinder and you know, and then bounce back up in the sports mode or whatever. So something to think about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and your timing was perfect. So no worries there. I'll turn it over to Grant Beck now.
Thank you. On the other side of the climate equation, kind of the outward facing and other things that we've been doing, last year, part of one of the goals was to update and get ready for phase 4 of the regional implementation agreement between the jurisdictions. And that's taken up a lot of our efforts in 2022 and 2023. But we're nearing completion on actually a entirely new model of how to work together as jurisdictions to promote regional actions with the understanding that each of the jurisdictions will be implementing on our own. We're the development authorities, so those have to be done by jurisdiction. And I'd say you'll be seeing that probably in the next month or so. And we're preparing for the annual retreat of the elected officials group, where goal setting will take place for actions that we may work together on over the rest of this year and into next year. So we'll report out on that as that gets closer. And then the biggest thing that we've been able to do for climate actions is actually fill the position that was authorized to be the climate coordinator. And so Lindsay Fields recently joined the department from Public Works. We appreciate their loss and our gain. And she's absolutely hit the ground running and is doing a fantastic job with the Lacey is going to be hosting this first retreat. And so she's actively planning for that right now and developing some thoughts on future programs. So I think you're going to see a lot more going on in that arena from both policy development and programs moving forward. Last year, we also worked with PSE. Hans Shepard worked closely with PSE to develop a rebate program that piggybacks on theirs. It's kind of cool in the fact that we're not going to have to do a lot to manage the program, and it extends the existing rebates that PSE has for conversion to more energy efficient things in your appliances in your household. And so we are actually, doubling the rebate. We're matching the PSE rebate for Lacey residents, and that's taken longer to get through the figuring out how to work together was pretty quick. Getting it through the contract attorneys at PSE has been the challenge, but we're nearly there on that, and you should be seeing that again very shortly. Let's see. A 2022 goal was to update the urban forestry management plan, which we did actually adopted. The council adopted it in 21, and we updated the development regulations to reflect that updated plan in 2022. And I'll tell you that one of the measures that the county's thrown out so far as a potential regional effort for climate action is to develop a similar sort of thing in the rural areas. So all the urban growth areas right now and the cities have forestry management plans. The rural lands do not. The big issues moving forward are to update the ILA and create that updated partnership, but then also incorporating the existing good work that we've done over the years into the current comp plan, and after that into development regulations through the updated comprehensive planning process. And so Ryan and Hans and his team are working on the public outreach plan and kind of the path forward, mapping out the roadmap to get to the end of that process, which is due in 2025. So we'll be looking through the climate action plan and other documents that the city's done good planning work over the years since the last update in 2016 to ensure that they're incorporated into the comprehensive plan. And unless I missed anything, Rick, I think that was my report. Unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Grant. Any questions for Grant? So I'm not seeing any, so we will now move on to the next vision area, which is excellence in programs and services. And I will hand it over to our human resource director, Leilani Jensen.
I haven't used one of these in a while, so if I lean too close, I apologize in advance. So we're going to focus on internal operations now. We've been talking a lot about our external facing folks, and these are the people that we work with day in and day out to support. So it's always nice for me to hear what's happening, what's getting done, because I know we're doing our jobs when you're getting your jobs done. So we have a mighty team of 7, and one of those is actually our emergency management safety coordinator. So in HR total, we have 6 people supporting all of the city of Lacey's workforce. And we were down staff in 2022. So I would like to say big shout out for our whole team of 5, getting 7 large projects done in support of the council priorities that were outlined. So for us, the priority is to attract and retain quality and qualified staff to meet service needs. Every jurisdiction is experiencing a shortfall. So it's not for lack of working really hard and thinking outside the box and partnering a ton with our directors to try to get people in the door. But let's talk a little bit about 2022. So for the council priorities, out of the plethora of things in our budget book that we do for the city, the priorities really focused on our recruiting and outreach efforts, what we do in classification and compensation, and then in the realm of labor relations. So in 22, to help with recruitment and improve unconscious bias mitigation in our interview step, we incorporated and implemented a new scoring tool, which we provided training on to all panel members on how to use, why it's important. And then we've been retooling that step in the interview process all along the way for the entire year. So I'm calling it complete, but just so you know, if we hear good feedback when a panel member actually uses the tool, we're still adding and retweaking to that. In class and comp, we had a big lift in the non-represented position salary and benefits comprehensive survey. The pandemic slowed us down. I think that work was actually supposed to kick off in 2020, but life happened. So we did a lot of the job description updates for our 65 classifications in 2022, went out for RFP, got an outside consultant, managed a steering committee of subject matter experts across the city, did all of the survey work, got the report out, and then staffed that and implemented the first phase of that here in 2023. So that's actually our one and only thing that we've completed so far for this year. And then also, as all of that work is going on, we have a statutory obligation to bargain with our collective bargaining partners. So we had our 2 biggest union groups bargaining all through 2022, our LPOG group, our AFSCME group. We were able to settle the contract for AFSCME in December. We were pretty much done by December for our LPOG, but we didn't actually sign until the beginning of 2023. Still going to call it a win for 22 though. So moving into 23, after our 7 projects are done, we've added 1 more person. So we're up to a team of 6, and we're in progress to a bunch of great work. We have, like I said, the first part of our non-rep study implemented as of the 1st of this year. When it comes to labor relations, we continue to be really busy. We're going to be bargaining again with our LPAW group this summer. So we're working with them to build our comp spreadsheets, which is a lot of work in data collection and getting information from other jurisdictions. Our command staff contract is coming open this fall as well. So we're doing the same thing, collecting information, getting ready to bargain with that group. And we are also gearing up for a large set of surveys to be done with AFSCME next spring. So in order to do that, we're doing job description updates. So we're getting all of that kind of going as vacancies come up in those represented classifications. So lots of work for our hiring managers and for our staff in that realm, but I'm hoping we'll have it all ready to go because it is an important part of retaining our top talent, making sure that we're looking at that market and staying within those market averages. A new area of work that we've taken on in our team, again, with the addition of a new position in 2022. In mid-year, we added a recruitment coordinator, and that was really to get us doing a lot more. Leaving your desk for days at a time takes you away from all the other things. So we could not do that with any of our existing staff. So we were able to, with our old city manager, get the approval. And we've attended a ton of career events to include ones here locally. So shout out to Jennifer Schaefer and now our new HR specialist, Alyssa Dolan-Correa, who have been attending a lot of events. We've been doing Hiring Our Heroes networking events on JBLM. I believe Grant and Rick have taken on an intern in their department from that outreach efforts. We've done virtual career fairs, SPSCC, North Thurston Public Schools Career College and Volunteer Fair, Centralia College Inclusion Career Fairs, the Diversity Fair up at UW, which has been ongoing for years and years. We attended Fuse, which was a huge Eastern Washington event for WSU, EWU, Gonzaga, and Idaho. A couple other high schools in the area. Alyssa just went and partnered with Olympia High School to do resume writing and how-to on NeoGov. Same thing for Montesano High School. And then they just did a community center event in Yelm. So we just continue to find ways to get the word out about our jobs, introduce the city of Lacey to areas here in Thurston County that may not have seen our webpage. And you all are also recruiters, so I'm officially tasking you to make sure that you're putting out the good word when you're going grocery shopping or on the bus, as it were. It's what I do all the time. And then as far as 2024, the last phase of our non-rep study will be implemented on 1/1 of 24. We have a list of classifications that will finalize that project. Like I said, our AFSCME group will be up again for bargaining, so we'll be rolling into that. And then for the outreach, we continue to build relationships. We continue to try to make inroads with high schools. We've been talking to our Lacey Youth Council. I think around the 4th of May, Jenny went and presented to them on our efforts. We're looking to host a career fair sometime next year, partnering with public affairs to maybe do like a 2-for-1 with our Lacey Council Summit that they're working on. We've also implemented an HR quarterly roundtable. So we've had 2 now. Our 3rd one is coming up on the 1st, and it is a collaboration of recruiters from state agencies, from Olympia Port, from city jurisdictions. They come down, talk about what are they doing to attract talent. And we've been also just talking about creating kind of a shared talent pool. Not every classification has ways to promote within. It's nice to promote within, but not always do we have that room or capacity. So how do we invest in the people, make sure that they know that we're here to career path plan, whether it's here at Lacey or they spend some time and learn some things at Olympia. And then eventually our hope is they come back and bring more stuff to the table here for Lacey and services. So lots of things that we're trying to creatively put into play for that retaining and attracting of top talent. And as Jen mentioned, we're doing a lot of other things besides what the council has prioritized us to do. So for this year alone, Bracy DiLeonardo, our benefits manager, and our emergency management safety coordinator, Ed Taylor, are working on updating our comprehensive emergency management plan, which is going to be a big overhaul. And we're also working on our hazard mitigation annex. And then the rest of our staff continues to monthly. You might have seen the posts on social media, put out new wellness events and things to help, again, just retain top talent, great staff. And I think upcoming for that, in fact, is the blood drive next week on Tuesday. So for those of you who like to donate, I think we have 18 slots left and it's community facing. So please sign up. If you don't have the link, I'm happy to share. And with that, I'm done.
Any questions?
Our staffing level, last we knew we were about 10% short, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 34 positions. Is that still where we currently are?
Yeah, it's kind of the running average. We're like at 320 FTE, but we are filled at like 295 or something like that when I last looked. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
All right, well, we'll go on to the next vision area, which is an engaged community. And I just want to say I'm reporting on the work that the public affairs team, the city clerk's team, and the city manager's team does. And I just get the fun job of reporting, but I do want to do a kudos and shout out to them on all the excellent work that they've been doing over the last 6 months. I want to highlight a couple of projects that we are actively working on and that you all will soon see here in 2023. And the first one is our legislative agenda, implement a new task force. So we are looking to implement, we'll be moving away from Granicus here in a month. You can anticipate that Kelly Adams, who has been leading this project, will be reaching out to council members here shortly to provide a new training on the new system. But we will be going to Civic Clerk, which will allow us to really kind of streamline some of the processes behind the scene and creating agenda and legislative items to get in front of council. And it'll also increase the accessibility for the general public as well as council members within the system. There's a lot of new bells and whistles that are going to be out there and available for people to be informed of what's going on and what's coming before the council, and then also what actions were taken at council meetings moving forward. So we're really excited about this system and the types of efficiencies it's going to build internally and the increase in accessibility it's going to do for members of the public, staff, and then council. We also are very excited because we will be having a new 311 or customer relations management system coming out here at the end of Q2, Q3. And it is something that's what we're hoping to do is make a one-stop shop for community members who might have a question, concern, or an issue where they can get information or they can, posit that question and get a response, and that we can also have better systems in place for us to be able to track what kind of questions we're getting from the community. So that way we can make more informed decisions on how we get information out, what type of programs and services we might provide. So it's going to be a really great tool for really helping us provide better customer service and having information readily available for community members. And so this will be something that will be accessible on our webpage, but it'll also be accessible in anybody's smartphone. There will be an app and you could go in there and you can upload your question or concern right away and get a response from a staff member and allow us to keep track of, again, what's kind of coming in from the city so we can continue to refine our communications and then also programs moving forward.
Question on that. So someone will be monitoring it, obviously.
Yep.
And then they'll forward that question to the appropriate person or department, I assume?
So that's the beauty of the efficiencies we'll gain with the system. That's what we have been doing for, the last decade with emails that would come in through, Lacey cares or we care, excuse
Okay.
me. And then it would get forwarded on to the appropriate party if that email hadn't gone directly to the appropriate party by knowing who to send it to. But when you're talking about, somebody who might not be as, informed about the operations of the city, you might not know who to send it to.
Sure.
So the idea with this is that it would provide a platform for somebody to put in what they are looking for, and it would actually have a automated workflow to send the message to the correct person. And so this is based on conversations with internal stakeholders as to who is that person and what should a response look like. But yes, the idea would be that, and I'll just use an example for Public Works here, that if something came in that was related to a pothole, that would go to the correct person rather than going to Jenny Bowersfeld in Public Affairs to then forward off to the correct person to get a response.
Excellent.
The other great thing about the system is that we will have a administrator. So Jenny Bowersfeld will still be highly involved, but she'll also be able to follow up. It'll notify her if responses are beyond kind of the expected response time. So let's say something goes beyond, let's just use in this example, 48 hours, she'd be notified and then she could follow up and say, hey, just curious, what's going on here? Are we waiting for some additional information? Can we provide the person who asked the question with a response? So that'll be a good way to keep a track again of just kind of what's going on. But then we'll also be able to pull that data, at an aggregate level and just kind of understand again what kind of questions and interactions are coming in through whether it's the web page, the app, but then also through customer walk-in. So this will be something where frontline staff can also enter in that information. So we get a real holistic picture of all of the services we're providing at the front line.
Excellent. Thank you.
If I can just add on, the real nice thing about this efficiency of the system is, Shannon mentioned it, maybe go to Jenny and she forwards it on to somebody, but a lot of times it's trying to figure out who it belongs to. So you have multiple people touching it to get to the right spot, where this will be much more efficient. And then we have the challenge of following up, say, was a response provided? And so this will continue to track that. So it's going to be a really nice system and create a lot of efficiencies within this, our organization.
A couple of other items just really quickly that we're excited to be getting a start on in the city manager's office is conducting a biennial survey. And so we are certainly gearing up for this, and we hope to have that ready and anticipate that the survey would be distributed out to the community sometime at end of Q3 or beginning of Q4. We're also taking a look at our marketing and branding, and this was something that was identified not only in the work plan, but something that was identified in our communications plan. And so starting here pretty soon, we are going to be taking a look at a lot of our print and digital materials and really trying to refine and create a more comprehensive brand and style and look and feel for the city. Another item I just want to highlight really quickly is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategic Plan, which we have been working through the Commission on Equity, and we anticipate that will be coming before the council again at the end of Q4. So we have a lot of great things going on here with an engaged community, and we will certainly be in front of the council here shortly on a lot of these items to provide either training or updates. So we're very excited about that. So we are just got a few visions left, vision theme areas left. I don't know about visions. I've got lots of visions, hopefully good ones. But I want to turn it back over to Grant Beck to talk about finalizing the city's homeless response plan and enhancing social services.
Thank you. And so this is an item that is still in progress, but I think for a good reason. It's a little bit overcome by events with all the resources that are now available within the county through the Home Fund and the establishment of the Regional Housing Council and the Right-of-Way Initiative. So we've actually accomplished a tremendous amount of building infrastructure to move people out of the camps and into the appropriate level that they can maintain, and hopefully out of the system altogether in the end. And so, the city, Rick, worked with the Days Inn to initiate that purchase, and we were able to accomplish that without city funds through the Right-of-Way Initiative, and it's currently being converted into an enhanced shelter and ultimately into permanent supportive housing. And that they're expecting to open up middle of June. They've gone through the abatement process, that's complete, and now just finalizing the getting all the furniture replaced and in and set up. So hopefully we'll be seeing people moved out of the camps along the right-of-ways here very shortly. Let's see. Yeah, So really the big push is working with the Regional Housing Council and staffing that. At the same time, and in the same statement as with the climate action stuff, we really appreciate the council authorizing the housing coordinator position, which we just filled. Jennifer Adams has hit the ground running and is really, we're very pleased with how quickly she's coming along and integrating herself and getting to know the lay of the land. And that's going to just further our ability to finalize plans, look for different opportunities. And she'll be definitely working with us in the comp plan process to implement the housing action plan actions into the comprehensive plan as well. Rick, anything you wanted to add?
One of the things one of the items I just want to highlight too, because on there is, of course, finalizing the homeless response plan. As the council is aware, we had that robust community work group on homelessness that worked on a strategy through the years of COVID and online, got to a handoff spot, and we're still looking to pick that up in 2024, 2023 and 2024 to finish that plan out based on staff resources that are available. But one of the items too is start implementing some of those strategies. And even though we haven't had the final plan adopted, we are still implementing a lot of strategies that have been discussed in that work group process and endorsed, and also are containing the draft plan. Things like, as Grant mentioned, converting hotels into permanent supported housing, tiny home village development, the mobile outreach team, the community resource unit, the rapid response team, trying to facilitate other models for providing housing and services like the Oxford model, sober living models, those type of things. So all those things are still continuing to be worked towards as we move forward in our response to homelessness.
So we'll move on and move back, I should say, back to a vibrant and diverse economy to hear a little bit more about enhancing the economic workforce and incubator projects and programs.
Thank you. Let me find my place again. So yeah, everything that was on the program for 2022, we did complete. Rick started efforts discussing the Gateway area with the Nisqually tribe. All right, I gotta find my spot here. I love your sort feature, Shannon, but I haven't mastered it yet. There we go. Sorry about that. The food truck plaza is now in its third year and is growing every year. So Wesley's done a nice job of bringing an event coordinator on board, and which doing 2 events a month. We found last year that was those events really bolstered the trucks that are there, and continues to create a nice public events at the food truck depot, which benefits both the trucks and the community. Wesley did 2 cohorts of the BIPOC business program, and actually has already held another one this year. So that program continues to be a success, and we plan on continuing and hopefully bolstering that in the future. A lot of the specific things deal with the makerspace, which has been exciting and a workload for everybody involved in that. We've got through the design process now for the expansion. It looks like we're going to be able to fill the entire building instead of doing it partly in thanks to the direct appropriation from Congress. But that federal funding is also, we're working through, how that affects the project and how to move forward. The EDA grant, I think, is nearing completion with the purchase of the new equipment. If you haven't been over there, it's absolutely fascinating, some of the things and technologies that they have right now, including several different types of 3D printers, including a carbon fiber printer. So, and Michelle's been working on extending the classes, getting new classes and training programs, and the number of members at the Makerspace is as high as it's been since inception as well. So that's a process of continuous improvement, but I believe we're in a really good space with the Makerspace. I just thought of that. And as far as building it out to really help us with workforce development, training, and keeping entrepreneurs, coming out of the university in Lacey where they need to be. We didn't get to the business launch program with SMU, but that will be part of our economic development plan update that Wesley started, that will go into the comprehensive plan element as we move forward with that. And I think that's pretty much it there, Rick, unless I missed something.
Nope, but we'll add on that, Grant mentioned that Wesley will be leading our efforts to update our economic development plan. This will be there'll be update of our plan that was adopted, I think, in 2015 originally. So we've been looking at, based on updated market analysis, we'll be looking at where we should be in terms of priorities and initiatives. With the partnership with St. Martin's University to develop a business launch program, that economic development plan is going to help inform that conversation with St. Martin's University. And then, of course, with the completion of the expansion of the makerspace will help facilitate that effort as well. So that's something that, while the business launch program with St. Martin's, we're not actively discussing it, we're waiting on those process to complete to move that forward. Also, we're looking at expanding and looking at different types of workforce programs. And so we have pretty strong partnerships, real strong partnerships with the Thurston Economic Development Council. With the South Puget Sound Community College, St. Martin's University, Washington Retailers Association, and then also Pack Mountain, which is the workforce training provider for the 5-county area. In fact, we were just able to tour Pack Mountain staff through the makerspace, and they saw a lot of potential to bring workforce dollars and curriculum to the makerspace once it's complete, to help with retraining as well as advanced manufacturing programs, with a partnership with a nonprofit out of the South King County area called AJAC, which focuses on advanced manufacturing curriculum. So there's a lot of those things are starting to get in the works. We're scheduling a meeting with those partners here in July to talk about how we can enhance some of those training programs. But also we are working with community college and St. Martin's University for developing different certificate programs. We talked about healthcare and the need for more folks with healthcare certificates or nursing certificates, those type of things. Those are things that are being actively discussed, and how we can kind of complement various curriculums to provide more of a long-term pipeline to enhance that labor pool for medical service needs, as well as we're talking about developing a warehouse academy or creating opportunities to train people to help support the distribution of logistics centers that we have out in the Northeast Lacey, and the more that will be probably developing down in Tumwater, to make sure that we can have a labor pool that can at least enter that market as an employee and have the skills to upskill and move up in the management operations of those facilities. So those are all things that are starting to have the conversations and talk about. with our partners. I think Councilor Stedman has a question.
Mike.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. So Grant mentioned the food truck court, and I've gone by there twice now, and there hasn't been parking even in the overflow. So that is great news. It's a great problem to have. Its success is awesome for the city, and everybody I talk to enjoys it. So good job, staff, for putting that together. It's a true success. So awesome.
And even though it's under our area and I'm reporting out on it, it's a team effort. And Public Works has been fabulous in helping us continuously improve the site for the vendors, and of course Janet and her staff working with us to manage the event. So appreciate
and
it.
it's really as local business owners as you can get. Mostly family owned and operated, and even veterans out there too. So,
And it's got the best hours it's ever had. Right.
Yep.
Yes, we increased the hours by popular demand.
Well, and there's also been a lot more interest with food truck vendors to locate there. There's been more food truck vendors, and actually, that's been the big difference, is having a stable, consistent floor, and then we have some rotating ones coming in. So there's that variety that people are looking for to kind of get people to be aware. Hey, I could go down there for lunch or dinner and get something and take the kids to the play equipment. So it's going to continually be a nice little service. Also, just as I think council's aware, but just to remind council and the public, we also are a contract with a local event manager to provide market activities there at the depot, one Friday a month and one Sunday afternoon a month. And that's something I think is going to take more traction, get people aware of that being a nice civic space in the community. So
awesome. Lots of great things happening in the city. All we need is Family Fun Center.
That's right. We're still working.
Cherry on top. Shannon, do you have anything else?
Well, we have one more vision area, and that is the coordinated and collaborative planning. And that is to discuss the framework to strategically advance annexations and UGA permitting and updating the comprehensive plan and reviewing development regulations. And I will turn it over one more time to Grant and Rick.
Thank you. So looking back at 2022, we did process, we didn't process any annexations last year because property owner initiated, because there was none. We did a couple the previous year. The city initiated annexations also. There hasn't been an opportunity to identify any specific spot where we can use it. We're running out of our powers of attorney. So it's going to be a little more strategic in the future to how we would initiate a city initiated annexation. We haven't received any annexation petitions this year so far, but we did have a pre-sub yesterday, which would include the development would come into the city, property would come into the city before the development occurred. So it may be one that moves forward either as a city initiated one or a property owner initiated one. And once we get a feel for how real the developers are, we think they're serious. But when they get an application in, we'll be talking to the council about the options for that annexation, because it is in a peninsula. So a lot of the annexation discussions is happening at the staff level and permitting within the UGA, but it's a big lift, and we really are focusing on the getting the county's policies up to date through the joint plan for the urban growth area. So as you know, their development regulations and policies for that area go back to 2003. So Brian and Hans have been working with the county on that. It's finally on their radar, and the draft plan should be going out for public comment very shortly, and the public participation process. So we're happy to finally get them to the table to work through that, so we can do some good developments in the urban growth area. All right, thank you, Shannon. All right, and then so the rest of them are comp plan related, which, well, I will say the neighborhood commercial, we started that last year and are getting close to going out for our second round of public participation. What we tried to do in the first round was a very high level of what do you want to see in these types of neighborhood commercial zoning districts, without specifics, just the kind of the general what makes how do you use these? And the feedback we got was very transportation related, with pedestrian access and bicycle access, multimodal kind of stuff. And also we got a lot of good feedback on what those areas should look like and the types of uses that should go in. So now we're Ryan and Hans are refining that into, again, not a development regulation, but some different visualizations of what we heard and how that could look on the ground. So we're getting ready to go out with that back to the neighborhoods. On the larger comp plan process, as I indicated earlier, we're working on the public outreach program, which well, kind of did all this at the school board meeting, so you should have it. It's going to be robust and ongoing as we move through this process. And again, mostly what we're looking at is, from a staff level, is bringing it up to any changes in the State Growth Management Act, incorporating all the policies from the various plans that we've done between the last update and now, and harmonizing the policies because things compete and they're, the different elements. So whenever we can, if we can do one thing that addresses housing and environment, for example, then that's a twofer. So we want to identify those kind of crossover areas and eliminate any potential conflicts, which the legislature builds into the GMA and the building codes, that kind of competing. The affordable, a lot of the affordable housing legislation contains exemptions from the energy code, and of course the energy code is being updated, which affects affordable housing. So that's kind of the balance we always live in, and what we're trying to eliminate in our own plans. But having said that, what we really need to hear about is the vision still consistent with the community, and so that public outreach plan will include as many efforts as we can to get out in the community and meet with the different stakeholder groups. And in particular, I'd like to focus on the youth because this is their plan, and this is what they're going to be living with 20 years from now. So, and I think that is all of them, is it not, Shannon?
Great, thank you, Grant. So I know we went over very high level all of the work plan items. There's actually over 200 benchmarks. We didn't go quite through each 200 of them, but you certainly can by going onto the website and taking a look at this dashboard, as well as in addition, there is just a spreadsheet of all of the benchmarks as well that people could take. Yeah, absolutely. So you got to have a passing score of at least 85%. I just want to again, just tip my hats to all of the departments and all of the individuals who are doing all of this exceptional work here at the city of Lacey. Like I mentioned, we get a report out on it, but we know that there are 290 some odd individuals working every day to make sure that we get to check off these benchmarks and continue our services and operations as they are. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who is helping the city do everything that they do on a day-to-day basis, as well as helping us hit these priority benchmarks. The intent is, again, to update this on a periodic basis so that members of the community, members of the city staff, as well as the council can take a look and see, how we're doing with the work plan as we continue to move forward. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that the council might have about the work plan and where we're at with it. And if not, I'm happy to also end this discussion item.
Councilmember Kunkel.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. This is excellent work. We have a stellar staff of people that are putting together something tangible that the public can see and they can be engaged in the process. And my hats off to all of you who have participated and put this together, spelling it out and making it easy for the public specifically to be able to go in there and see on a particular project and have some clarity of understanding. So you folks did a great job.
I was going to say that. But I also wanted to say, it's noticeable. It's noticeable at the ground level on the street. When you walk through this city, when you drive through this city, and you compare it to our neighboring jurisdictions, I'm not saying any names, but you can see where Lacey stops and another jurisdiction begins. And I have, well, we'll skip that. Well, I do know, and on another note, that annexation is something that's really, and UGA permitting is something that the mayor's, I know, very passionate about. He talks about all the time, and I think the last time we had this discussion about annexation, his idea, thought, and goal was to put a plan together for annexation that would ensure that annexation is something that is going to happen. And it almost kind of sounded as if, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it almost kind of sounded as if, what are we going to do to ensure that the county releases to us the areas that we would like to see released to us. And so I don't know that question was answered tonight, and I don't necessarily want to ask that question. It's not my question to ask. It is his, but I think that's where he was headed with his, hey, let us really, get a foothold in annexation. I know it's worked in several parts of the city. And I know that there's several other parts of the city that he has his eye on, and I think we all kind of do, to close off some of the islands, to shore up some of the lines. It's just kind of one of those, does it pencil for us as a city? And I don't know, because I know that when you when you come down Martin Way, you go through how many jurisdictions? You start in Olympia, you get to Lacey, you get
Three
to
jurisdictions. You go Olympia, Lacey,
county, Lacey,
county.
and then county again. And eventually we're going to have to agree on that in some capacity or another, and so on. But there is the money, there is the time, there is the effort, there is the energy. And I'm only saying this because he's absent, and I know that he would say something. So that is the only reason. I am not saying this to open further discussion, because that is not what we're going to do. But all in all, I just want to say you guys really make the city look really, really good. And with that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. You keep it classy, Lacey.
Take care, everybody.